Hello, leader. Welcome back to the Fierce Factor podcast. It's Kaylee here, and I am coming to you from my long summer travel marathon. This week, I'm in upstate New York with the family watching Luke, my 12-year-old, play baseball in Cooperstown, where the Baseball Hall of Fame is. It's basically a rite of passage for every 12-year-old boy to play baseball in Cooperstown. So seeing him have the absolute time of his life has been the best gift. Considering I'm pretty homesick, I will leave from here with my 15-year-old to take him to play lacrosse in Bend, Oregon, the same tournament last year where I brainstormed and began writing our new ebook, The Diary of a Female Entrepreneur. It's kind of fun to look back a year later and really just settle into the realities of what has transpired. Sometimes it's takes like repeating something annually or making a traditional reflection habit that allows us to even do this. Like in the past year, in addition to completing and publishing our new ebook, I hired 2 new employees, co-created and launched Voice of Impact, our executive presence and dynamic communication private coaching program, hosted an Academy live retreat, built and executed our first amazing live event, the Alt Experience. I spoke on stage at several industry conferences, donated $72,000 in scholarship tuition to injectors in our industry, launched a high-level private thought leader mastermind group for women at 5 million annual revenue plus a year. I began scaling back my one-on-one coaching to re-engineer the structure of our flagship Academy program and doubled the coaching infrastructure and capacity on our team so we can continue to elevate as the preeminent leader in our space and step into new channels like corporate partnerships and some other exciting verticals we will be announcing later this year. And honestly, when I rattle off this list, I realize it's so much easier to just think about what's not working, like that's the default, or to focus on random expectations I had for myself that I didn't execute on or achieve at some level. But here's why spending time doing the reflective, deep work is actually critical, because we can now evaluate whether we are producing impact in our life that is aligned with our purpose. And I encourage you to take a few minutes to go through this exercise yourself. Sometimes just looking back and acknowledging the results of your efforts is all the motivation you need to keep going, and more importantly, to settle deeper into your truest calling. While I was out for a walk this week, I popped my headphones in and revisited a Fierce Factor podcast episode from back in early 2023 that inspired me to bring this message to you today, because I think there's a collective shift that's happening in society today, one that is inspiring a lot of high-achieving women to reevaluate the focus of their energy and to ultimately question whether the path they are on today is truly in alignment with the life they want to live. Like for me, I've become extremely protective of my energy. And because of that, I'm quite in tune with the feeling of misalignment. And it's been a practice. Like I know if you listen to this podcast, you aren't afraid to work hard, but the confusion, the overwhelm, and the emotional exhaustion that you have really occurs when you're working hard at something that just no longer serves you. And this reality can be so overwhelming that we bury it deep and just busy ourselves with more work to avoid the discomfort of facing it. So this week, I want to walk you through an experience that will allow you to really pause and think about default circumstances in your life that made perfect sense at one point in time, but have evolved into a source of baggage for you today. In this replay, I'll talk about our 6-week program, Confidence to Scale, or CTS. Just a heads up, this is a program we ran for several years, and we have now folded this program into our year-long business growth incubator, the Pop Leadership Academy. So if this episode resonates with you and you would like to discuss this program or other ways to work with us, you can click the link in show notes to schedule a no-pressure discovery session with our coaching team. Okay, leader, without further ado, please enjoy this episode number 223, Eliminate the Baggage. Hi there, welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. I'd like to thank Brooke Castillo, first of all, for the inspiration behind this exercise that I'm going to share with you today, because it has really inspired me to take pause and realize that many of the decisions I've made throughout my life have now become default choices. It's really interesting to think about. I was at brunch for a girlfriend's birthday this past weekend, and one of the women at the table was talking about how expensive colleges are these days. Her daughter applied and was accepted to 2 very prestigious private universities. She was even offered a $20,000 a year scholarship, but that still left her with $80,000 a year to fund for her daughter's education. And she was asking, at what point is that worth it when she doesn't really know with 100% certainty that an education of that expense is necessarily a better investment than a UC school or even 2 years in junior college? And then the woman across the table from her said, exactly, my niece went to school in Boston, a sweet investment in multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then decided during her junior year that she wanted to switch majors from pre-med to French. So she ended up studying abroad in France and basking in experiential education on the dime of her Ivy League degree. I mean, can you imagine? But the reality is, how can you possibly know at 17 or 18 years old what you're going to want to do with your life for the next 75 years? And we kind of accept this when it comes to college, right? We do our best to earn a degree or start on a path, and that path may change, and it often does. But when it comes to almost every other aspect of life, marriage, kids, home, friends, our business, our employees, our investments, I don't know about you, but I tend to have this philosophy in life that I'll make the best decision possible at the time, and then I'll just make it work for the future. My husband loves this about me, by the way, because I'm the girl who can walk into a furniture store and pick out an entire living room arrangement in like 10 minutes. Done. Next. I figure if I don't love it when I get home, I'll learn to love it. And then I'm on to the next thing on my to-do list. I go back to doing. Time goes on, and we get to a point where many of the decisions we've made throughout our lives still impact us. We have evolved and grown. We've changed in incredible ways, but the things around us haven't. This week, as I'm developing this podcast, I'm on vacation with my family in the mountains, and my husband and I had a very emotional moment together as we dropped the boys off at the mountain to snowboard together without adults. It was like mind-blowing to think back to only 10 years ago, Luke was experiencing snow for the first time in his life. He couldn't even walk, and now he's this big boy snowboarding. And we started to talk about the mind-blowing changes that humans experience over decades or even in 5-year increments. Think about it. From newborn to 5, a whole different human. From 5 to 10, a whole different human. From 15 to 20, a whole different human. You get the idea. But guess what? I'll bet as an adult, when you think back to 5 years ago, you can admit that you're significantly further along than you thought you would be. But you don't really feel a whole lot different as a person. You kind of feel the same with a few more wrinkles and a slower metabolism. Am I right? So why is that? Does our development slow down? I've thought a lot about this, and I've learned a lot working with business owners early in their careers and then when they're more seasoned. The creativity changes. The risk-taking changes. The flexibility and adaptability changes. As we mature, we become less willing to fail and make fun of ourselves. And we stop exploring newness because our quote unquote plate is full. It's full of passive or default commitments that we made over years and years of choices that still take presence in our lives. Essentially, we have changed, but the things around us haven't. So today I want to offer a challenge to you to take a moment to become more intentional about the things you're doing every single day. To, in essence, redecide on the life you have. Think about the things in your life that are default. For example, your relationships. What if you hit the reset button and you had to re-choose the people you have in your life, all of them? Who would you pick first? And how would you be with them?
Maybe you'd realize that there are people in your life that you wouldn't recommit yourself to. Or maybe there are people you would absolutely have in your life, but you would reimagine the type of relationship or interactions that you have with them. Now, what if we did the same exercise for our behaviors? What are some of the things that you would continue doing? Maybe working out or learning a new language or skill or going on hikes or vacations. Maybe there's something new you've integrated into your life that you'd like to have more time for. What would you do more of? And what would you stop doing? Maybe it's a bad habit or the way you overbook your schedule or passively say yes to too many things. Things that are holding you back from actually accomplishing your real goals. Think of your home. If you started over, what would you keep? What would you eliminate? Your closet. Are those the shoes you want? Or the panties in your underwear drawer? How about your business? If you could rebuild from a super fresh, clean slate, knowing now what you know, what would you do differently? How would you show up in your business? What services would you offer? What tone would you set for the people around you? What boundaries would you put in place? Who would you keep on your team? Just this past week in our academy, we talked about compensation plans and how so many of our students wish they would have done it differently in the beginning. And the point is, the business has evolved. And so feeling like the decisions that were made years ago should evolve as well is completely valid. When it comes to our business, I feel like we get stuck in the cycle of trying to solve problems that only became a problem because we grew successfully at that. Why do we have to stay stuck with the decisions, the systems, the approaches, the people that made sense 5 years ago? Can you imagine if I stuck Luke in his snow boots from 5 years ago? He wouldn't last 2 minutes on the mountain. The snowboard wouldn't fit. He'd be in excruciating pain. Are we trying to band-aid problems instead of admitting to ourselves that we've changed and being okay with that? But we just keep doing and doing and doing, and very rarely take a moment to just be, to reevaluate where we are and what we want out of life. This is the main idea behind Confidence to Scale, our 6-week business growth certification program. How can we possibly build a house on an outdated, incomplete, or dysfunctional blueprint? This is the same as trying to scale a business on a mission statement created by that web company who you fired 3 years ago. Again, we want to rush to do. Add the systems, build the team, bring on more services, expand locations, do. I'm literally tired just thinking about it. No wonder we're all burning the candle at both ends. So what if you shifted your mindset around doing and instead valued the being part, like sitting where you are for a minute and redeciding every day if you're spending your life the way this version of you wants to live? Do you have your team? I mean, your real team, the people in your ecosystem that are going to help you accomplish the today dream, the dream of the future, not the dream of the past? The answer is probably no. So what will you do about that? Continue giving yourself for people who couldn't really care less? In CTS, we talk about a 10-year vision. I've actually walked you through this meditation in episode 22. It's called Think Bigger. And I realize it can be a challenge to think about 10 years out because we start overthinking, justifying, rationalizing. You know, like I want to live in a castle and drive a flying car. And then I'm like, well, Kaylee, that's not very practical. But truly, all creation begins in the mind. Look at what you've accomplished up to this point. It was all once just a figment of your imagination. Imagine if that young girl who had such big dreams had rationalized and justified why it wouldn't work for you. That girl was excited for opportunity and willing to find a way. Okay, so if this is you, if you can't get yourself quiet enough to really think about what the next 10 years could look like for you, think about 1 year. In fact, what if you only had 1 year? What if you had 1 year left? If you had 1 year to live, how would you live it? Scary to think, huh? Because when you confine your ultimate dream to 1 year, you pressure your brain to create some constraint and create some intuitive awareness. And truth be told, your time in this life is limited. You might ask yourself, if I had a year, what would I stop doing? What would I start doing? What would I no longer care about? What would I care more about? What would I create? And how would my thoughts, feelings, and actions change if I only had 1 year to live? Now go back to the questions I posed earlier about what you would redecide on, what you would recommit to. If you had 1 year left, who would you spend it with? How much would you work? What risks would you take? What trips would you go on? Does this invoke a different experience for you? Wouldn't you be ruthless with your time? Wouldn't you have a literal 0 to-do list on your desk? Here's the thing, leader. The truth is, none of us actually know how much time we have left, but we run around acting like our time is infinite, like the people we love will just still be there, like the things we believe we deserve still need to be earned. One day I'll get there. Living like you have a condensed amount of time creates the intensity of focus on what's truly important to you. And shouldn't we be doing this routinely? So often we think it's the tactics that will be the magic solution for us in our business and life. But I have some news for you, Goddess. And hopefully this is news that empowers you to realize that you're not just one tactic away, but instead you're already here. You have arrived. You're already enough. You're already worthy of everything you desire. You just need to eliminate the default circumstances in your life that made sense when you said yes to them, but don't anymore today. The reason scaling your business starts first with your confidence is that regardless of how massive your business becomes, if it doesn't align with your today self, your truest life, it will never be enough. You will just keep doing and doing and doing and doing until you have nothing left. But it's all possible for you. It's all possible, but it's going to take one empowered stop, and that is gifting yourself this exercise, thinking about where you want to be, joining me in my Confidence to Scale program, taking a moment to recalibrate, refocus, and redecide on who, what, when, and where you want to take this next level. The abundance that is readily available to you may just blow your mind beyond belief, but you have to believe it. My wish for you is that you savor every moment of life, the good and the bad, and that you're able to fulfill your mission with a deep sense of purpose, peace, and joy, not just have a mission that's stuffed in a drawer somewhere. Take a few minutes this week to think about where you're headed, and if there's some old baggage that you could just use some help lifting, right? Some cleaning out of the closet, let me help you. Go head over to klcconsultants.com/scale. Check out Confidence to Scale. Get in our programming. Get the help. And remember, your time is limited. So choose it wisely, Queen. That's all I have for you today. Happy birthday to me. And thank you, because there's nobody I'd rather be with today than with you. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you feel inspired to really think about the doing in your life versus the being and where you want to go.
Listen, leader, if you're vibing with me here, hang tight, because I have a brand new resource for you. You are a successful, confident, powerful woman who just isn't into being average. No, you have a calling, and part of that calling is requiring you to level up. And I know that if you're working across the next $1 million milestone in your business, you need to be in the right circles. And perhaps that's why you found us. I'd love to invite you to join The Blueprint, a weekly resource for inspired, provocative thinkers who are taking this conversation to the next level. Get access to free business tools, podcast supplements, guideposts, and direct communication with me and my expert team. And of course, a masterfully curated circle of women making big moves and disrupting the status quo in aesthetics and wellness. You can link directly through the show notes or head to klcconsultants.com/blueprint. It's time to elevate. See you there, Goddess.